welcome to The Explainer. So, what if I told you that the ability to charm, to influence, to captivate other people isn't some magical gift you're born with, but a skill you can learn? Today, we're diving deep into the powerful psychological principles from Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction. And just to be clear, this has almost nothing to do with romance and everything to do with influence. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to redefine what seduction actually is. Then, and this is crucial, we'll look at the common mistakes that push people away. After that, we'll get into the fun stuff, the powerful archetypes of allure. And finally, we'll talk about the very first steps to putting all of this into action. Right, so let's get this out of the way. When we say seduction here, we're not talking about dating. Greene's whole point is that this is a learnable strategic skill. It's about how you negotiate a business deal, how you lead your team, or even how you just get people to really listen when you talk. It's the art of psychological influence, plain and simple. So, at its core, this is all about shaping perception. It's about creating this aura around yourself, an aura of desirability, of intrigue, maybe even authority. And it works on people's emotions, on their subconscious desires, long before their logical brain has a chance to catch up. But here's the thing. Before you can start building any kind of influence, you have to stop actively destroying it. Greene uses this great analogy of clearing a field before you plant seeds. You got to get in there and pull out all the weeds first, these common traits that just repel others, so you can start from a neutral place, not from a negative one. So Robert Greene lays out 8 very specific personality types that are just fundamentally anti-seductive. These are the people who have really low social power, simply because their natural behaviors push people away. Let's break them down. First up, you've got the brute. And you know this type. They have zero patience, no self-control, they try to force everything, and by doing that, they completely ignore our basic human need for choice. It immediately puts people on the defensive because it feels threatening. Next is the suffocator. You know, their intense neediness is just a massive red flag because it signals this deep inner emptiness. People are naturally drawn to those who have a strong sense of self. The suffocator basically advertises that they have none, which makes them seem like this emotional black hole you need to stay away from. We've all met a moralizer. They are totally inflexible and they judge everyone by their own rigid, and let's be honest, often totally arbitrary standards. Just being around them is exhausting because they're constantly making you feel like you're falling short, and it just drains your confidence. And then you have the tightwad. Look, seduction is all about creating a feeling of abundance, of possibility. But the tightwad, with their stinginess and their fear of taking any risk, they just project scarcity and fear. It's pretty much impossible to be drawn to someone who seems like they have absolutely nothing to give, not emotionally, not in any way. The blumbler. This one is just painfully self-conscious. They're so worried about what other people think of them that they can never, ever just be authentic. And that insecurity creates this super awkward energy that makes everyone else uncomfortable. I mean, if they can't be themselves, how can you be yourself around them? The windbag. They are just so lost in their own monologue that they forget the absolute first rule of influence. Information is power. By never listening, they don't learn a single thing about the other person's wants, their needs, their weaknesses, which makes them totally ineffective. The reactor is always the victim. They're overly sensitive, they complain constantly, and they blame the entire world for their problems. And this dynamic forces you into the role of their therapist or their rescuer, and it is absolutely draining. They literally suck the energy right out of the room. And finally, we have the vulgarian. You know, they ignore all the social graces, usually with the excuse of just being honest. But influence is an art form. It requires finesse. It requires understanding social cues. The vulgarian brings a sledgehammer to a situation that calls for a scalpel, and it just shows a total lack of social intelligence. So here they are, all 8 of them together. Now be honest with yourself for a second. We all have moments where we slip into one of these. The key isn't to feel bad about it, it's to become self-aware. Just recognizing these tendencies in yourself is the most important first step to mastering your own behavior and building real influence. Okay, so we've weeded the garden. Now it's time to plant something. Once you've started to minimize those negative traits, you can begin to cultivate one of these 9 powerful archetypes of allure. These are the proven paths to developing genuine, pretty much irresistible charisma. So Greene breaks it all down into these 9 fundamental types. And you might see bits and pieces of yourself in more than one, but usually one of these archetypes is going to represent your natural strength. Think of this as a kind of menu of charisma. Each one of these works on a completely different psychological principle. You've got the siren, think Marilyn Monroe, who just leverages pure fantasy. Then there's the charismatic, like JFK, whose power came from this unshakable self-belief. Or think about the coquettes, a total master of suspense, perfectly captured by Cillian Murphy's Thomas Shelby, who keeps you guessing, always a little off balance, and always wanting more. Okay, so you know what to avoid, and you have an idea of the archetypes. But how do you actually begin? How do you create that first little spark of interest and desire? Well, the process starts not with some grand gesture, but with subtlety. First, you have to choose your target carefully. Influence is specific. It's not a shotgun approach. Second, your approach has to be indirect. This creates mystery, and it avoids triggering their defenses. And third, and this one is so important, you create what's called a triangle. See, people's desires are often just copied from others. If you make yourself appear desired by other people, you create social proof that you're a prize worth winning. It's a really powerful psychological shortcut. And that brings us to the most important step of all. This isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about figuring out your natural strengths and then turning up the volume on them. True self-awareness is the real foundation of influence. So just take a second to think about it. Are you a natural charmer, always making other people feel like the center of the universe? Or are you maybe an ideal lover, someone who can paint a beautiful vision of a shared dream? Or maybe you're a natural, whose innocence is your greatest weapon. Knowing your core strength, that's the key that unlocks your true potential to influence. Because ultimately, the art of seduction is a form of power. And just like any form of power, it can be used for good or for not so good. The real question isn't just about learning these tools. It's about the intention you have when you choose to wield them. So what are you going to do with this knowledge?